Welcome to Yeshiva Daf. We are starting Mesechus Zevachim, Seder Kachim, a new Seder, a new opportunity to chap a Rein and to learn the Inyanim of Kachim. Now there is, anybody who wants to look for Hagdamas for Kachim, really the Hagdamas of Kachim are all included in what we're going to learn in Kachim. But as we're going to get today to the end of the Daf, we're going to say, I think, an important Hagdama al pi machshava how to treat Kachim. Let's start first of all with the daf. Zevachim, the base says, Kol hazvachim shenizbichu shaloi lishmon ksherim. Whenever you have a zevach, a korban, which was nizbach shaloi lishmon, wasn't that done for the right purpose of that korban? It was done for a different purpose, with not the right mindset. And we're going to see that by kachim, the mindset is so vital. It's so important. The mindset of what you're thinking affects and determines if the korban is a good korban, as we'll get to in the end of the daf. But what? Yeah. So there's many details that have to do with the lishma, but what the Mishnah says, if they did zvicha, which means the shchita, shaloi lishma is kosher. The owners did not fulfill the obligation, and they have to be another korban. Kosher means it's you put it on the mizbeach and you throw the blood, and the korban is miskabel on the mizbeach. Chutz, except there's two exceptions. Chutz min Pesach v'achatos. Pesach, which is done l'lishma, it's pasul. You throw it away. Chatos done shelo lishma, it's pasul. You can't come and use it. So two korbanos, if you done shelo lishma, it's over. And all the korbanos who don't shelo lishma is kosher. HaPesach, when is the Pesach? The Mishnah tells us, HaPesach b'zmanoi v'achatos b'chol zman. Pesach is not during the day of Erev Pesach. When you do it shelo lishma, it's pasul. And the chatos, when it's done, anytime, any korban chatos. Let's first of all finish the Mishnah with and focus on two inyanim here, which is an important lumdis over here to start the Masechta. Osham is similar. A Pesach b'zmanoi v'achatos Osham b'chol zman. Again, we're just repeating it. Pesach is an Erev Pesach. Chatos and Osham is b'chol zman. What's chatos and Osham? Chatos is a korban that we saw in Mesechus Horius. Chatos is when a person does a chet, usually that has a b'shoigig, b'mezi brings a chorus, b'shoigig he brings a chatos. And that's the chatos. What is a osham? Osham, the specific inyanim they bring a osham. One example is osham gzelois, when a person steals and lies about it. One is osham me'ilois, a person does me'ilah bekachim. There's 5 oshams. So there's specific korbanos. They're both coming to rectify, but not exactly the same category. So says Abelazar, achatos Omar Abelazar, achatos bo'al chet, v'osham bo'al chet. So he learns that chatas and osham are the same, and this is what we're going to be, the one's going to discuss later. Anything which is nishchat l'shem pesach, l'shem chatos. Now talk about, you take a korban oilo, for example, but you have in mind 4 chatos, you have in mind 4 pesach, meaning it's not the chatos or the pesach, you have the wrong mindset. You have the korban which is oilo, and you have the mindset 4 chatos and 4 oilo is possible.
Isn't it the beginning of the Mishnah?
No, Pesach, we're talking there about a korban Pesach. And korban chatos, shech shelo lishma. I'm talking now about a korban oilo, shech l'shem Pesach.
Shelo lishma means you don't have the proper kavanah.
Oh, so I want to get to that in a moment. Very good. Good shayla. How do you define shelo lishma? So let's get back to that in a moment. Shimon achi Azario oimer. Now here an interesting Rashi puts out, who's Shimon achi Azario? There were 2 brothers. One of them went to work, and the other one went to learn. And the one who went to work supported the one who was learning. So that's his called Shimon, who was the brother of Azariah.
Azariah is the one who
paid for the bills. If they shechta for something which is a more kaddish, and we'll see as we go through the Masechta, a different level of dusha. So if it's a more kaddish, it's kosher. If it's for a lower one, it's possible. We talk about all the korbanos. Okay, it's at Kodesh Kadosh Shachtu Shekodesh Kalim. Kodesh Kadosh brings the high level of dusha. You did l'shem kodesh kalim, psulim. Kodesh kalim sheshachta shekodesh kadashim, ksherim. Malim, abchoy v'amaiser shachta l'shem shlomim. Abchoy maiser. Abchoy who was born, the firstborn. Maiser was the 10th. It went through the Shevet. If it's shachta l'shem shlomim, ksherim, because it's a high kedusha. Shlom sheshachta shebchoy v'shemaiser psulim. That's possible. We get to the Gemara, we'll see all these discussions. Now, two important points to focus on right here. Number one is, first of all, what does it mean when we talk about that a person did something, shaloi lishma, or something like that? Are we talking that he said it or that he thought about it? So Toys over here points out, he'll send us to learn Masechet Bo Metzia, that every time we're talking about the wrong thought, we talk about dipur. Machshava alone is not enough. Machshava is only machshava. You need to come and express it with dibur. You have to say, I'm doing this and this. If you don't say dibur, it doesn't work. Some Rishonim disagree. It's a big machlokes in the Rishonim. Does the machshava need to be machshava only or dibur as well? Tosis, remember, Tosis beginning in the Masechta says clearly it's dibur, not machshava.
But if people is just machshava.
Also dibur, according to Tosis. Means he says, I'm going to do this, I'm not lizuk domish l'mocha. According to machshava does not work. According to Tosis, machshava doesn't do anything. Now, there is a big chakir in the Achronim. Many Achronim discuss it, but Abdul Kulam is the Biskarov. The Biskarov, he's the
Expert.
He's the mefarish on kachim. He's the one who went through the entire kachim, explaining each one of the. That's a peller. He's such a leader Achronim. And the question is like this: what is shaloi lishma? Is shaloi lishma a lack of lishma? I mean, you have to have the korban lishma. If you don't have it shaloi lishma, you're lacking the lishma.
You're doing it with shaloi.
Or shaloi lishma is an active psul in the korban. And we will get later in the Masechta, we're going to see many nefkiminis regarding this. The real shaila is, let's say a person is not really. We're going to see also in this daf. We're going to see a little later. The pshat is that I need to have lishma. If I'm missing the lishma, I'm out. Or pshat is not that I need to have the lishma, I'm missing the lishma, I'm out, but that shalom lishma is a psul in the korban. It's an active psul. A person, let's say, doesn't have a full active psul, or he made a mistake, maybe it won't be poised. One of the rayas that we have to this discussion is the first Rashi in the Masechta. Rashi says, what does it mean? Zok Rashi. Shenishchat oila l'shem shlomim. Oila l'shem shlomim. Why Rashi says oila l'shem shlomim? Just say he did oila shaloi l'shem oila. He didn't have l'shma. Really, that's what he asked before. He didn't have l'shem oila. Why have to say that he had l'shem shlomim? That's a riot to the tzad. Not l'shma is not a psul. The psul is when you have an active shaloi l'shma. Shaloi l'shma takes l'shma.
That means if you're bringing a korban, you have no machshava at all. I have to bring a korban. It's like this. Don't have machshava. I'm doing it now.
So this thing was going to address it on Amud Beis. If I have no machshava at all, it doesn't work. But that's a little bit of a raya, because we're going to see that no machshava at all is fine. So Shaila is why. That's all right to the side of the Biskarov, that it's not a din by a lacking lishma, but a loy lishma is an active psul.
You have to have
but action, like giving the korban with no lishma, is the action overriding the thought.
Yes.
So,
No, it doesn't matter. No. Because you have to have the right thought. I mean, action means he's talking. When the talk says something which makes it asur, so you place on the carpet. You make it possible. That's how kachim works. This is really the idea of kachim, that this small nuances ruins it, as we'll see as we get to the end of the daf.
You don't need to have the right thought. You just don't have. You can't have the wrong thought.
That's the two done in the Bishkor. Very good. You put it together very nicely. Says the God, why it says in the Lashon Mishnah is because Elo shloy olu. What elo? They're okay, shloy, but it didn't work for the Bible. Hakavashwan the Bible d'loy olu shulchoyvo b'gdushasayu kaimu v'asur l'shenui bu. You should know it did not work for the owner, but everything else is intact, and you're not allowed to do any changes to it. You're not allowed to have any other psulim into it. Okay, the Rava Damarava oilo sheshachto l'shol yishma ozu sur l'zog dama shol yishma. If you shech the shol yishma, you're not allowed to throw the blood shol yishma. There's another discussion over here. We mentioned in our Mishnah that the psul was by shechita. So it says over here, it's really all arba avodas. By korbanis, you have 4 avodas: shechita, hoylacha, and shechita, kabbalah, hoylacha, zrika. So it says over here that whatever we talked about is all 4. That discussion, the Rambam agrees with that or not. Big Indian on its own. Says more Yibai Seimo.
Rava is contradicting the Mishnah.
No, the Mishnah says it only says Sheniz b'chush l'Yeshua. That's all it says. That's what our Mishnah says. Shaila is that what about Ahoy Locha Kabbalah? We have different discussions regarding that. Says the Gemara, now this idea of Rava, that even though you did Shalom Lishma, you still have to continue keep it b'kedusha. It's either a svar or a pasuk. You made one change, so you're gonna do changes. I mean, like because you ruined it a little bit, you can ruin it more.
Because Rava said you have to
continue doing lishma with everything else has to be intact. Because you made something one wrong doesn't make it allowed to do two wrongs. On the pasuk it says, you have to keep your word. As you did a neder, nedav. So neder and nedav are the same thing. Neder is when you say, I will bring a korban to Beis Hamikdash. Nedav is you say, I'm donating this animal to Beis Hamikdash. Nafkamina is, what happens if the animal is lost? If you say, I'm donating this animal got lost. If I'm going to bring an animal, I have to bring it.
Does Rava mean that this kushas are both in the korban?
Yeah.
You have to continue.
Continue, the whole thing. Says the one high nedav, says the one base on base. Neder. How do you get from that? We talk about a neder. How do you get to nedav? Hello, if you did what you're supposed to, you fulfilled your oath. And if not, you'll be a nedav. Goes down a level. Meaning, this animal becomes kaddish, doesn't fulfill your oath, but it still has kedusha. Now let's change the nedav. So it says the Gemara, this is a pasuk that tells you the animal has to be kosher. You weren't by us in the night in the tchum, which means he was out of the tchum on Shabbos. He wasn't able to get there when they spoke in the night in Shabbos. In Beicharmuch, that's the place. The what? The Rami Rav Emili Mal Yosa Adad Rishani Lo. Rav asked questions and he had answers. What did he ask? My Emili Mal Yosa. Today, call us Zevachim Sheniz B'chu Shaloi Lishmon. Taimod the Shaloi Lishmon. Because Lo Lishmon. Hastamo Olu Nam Labayim Shulchayvo. What if it wasn't Shaloi Lishmon? He just didn't think anything, as Dr. Wazorski said very adequately before. Alo Stomo now Lishmon. Stomo. If I didn't say anything, it's Lishmon. Very meaning, he says tomorrow. Call a get Shenechtav Shaloi Lishemisho Pasul. Person who writes a get without the kavanah for the right woman. It's possible. Why is the difference between a get and a korban? Sigma Vishani answers, Zevachim bistam lishman oimdim. Isha bistama la the gerushim oimedes. Right? The kibbutz. Korban, it's meant to be a korban lishma. Isha is not meant to be divorced unless you have kavanah to be divorced. So the question is, what is the stama? So he says over here also regarding milu, we have a similar idea. Nafkin legabi a goy. If a goy does milu, it will be kosher, not going to be kosher by a get. Why? Because get you have to have an active lishma. By a korban and by milu you have to have an active lishma.
Is that by bris? Is that by milu?
By milu. I'm not going that halach l'maisa, but there's such a concept. The Zevachim b'stomach shermino. How do you know the Zevachim are kosher b'stomach? Ilim yadid nakol Zevachim sheniz b'chu shal lishmon v'lektani shalois b'chu lishmon. We have a deal from our Mishnah. It says nishbach shaloi lishmon. Mashra stom is okay. Can we get namiktani? Also by get you have the same language. Kol a get shenichtav shaloi lishima pasul. Lo l'shem isha. He wrote it not for the name of a woman. V'lektani shaloi nichtav l'shem isha. It didn't say it wasn't written for the lishma of isha. Pasul. So the deal for the Lasha is not a good deal. Elameaf and the following. Keitzad lishmon. We say like this. Keitzad lishmon v'shaloi lishmon. We're going to learn later in the Masechta, Daf Yud Gimel, lishmon v'lo lishmon. I don't know if we have your Masechta in Zevachim. I don't think so. One of these Gemara's Zevachim? No. What is the Mishnah is going to say? Keitzad lishmon v'shaloi lishmon. Meaning, how can it be a case where you have an animal which is lishma and shaloi lishma? Says the Gemara, the example is l'shem Pesach, l'shem shlamim. Pesach and shlamim. Time of dom l'shem Pesach, l'shem shlamim. How l'shem Pesach v'stoma kosher? What happens? He said l'shem Pesach. The Torah discussed over here. Let's assume just for a moment here to make things easy that we're talking about two different avodas. He does shchita, and then he does riko. So shchita, he says l'shem Pesach. Riko, he says l'shem shlomim. So that's two different machshavas. That's what the example of the Mishnah over there in Daf Yud Gimel. Now, what happens if he did l'shem Pesach, and then he did his riko without thinking anything? Mashma's question, because it doesn't say only shlomim is the example it's possible. How much stomach is lishma? Mashma stomach is lishma. So well, that's not a good right. I started by doing l'shem Pesach, so probably you say whatever you continue, even if you have no thought, is based on your original thought. So that's not a right. Says the Gemara, let me say for the end of the Mishnah. Shaloi lishmon v'lishmon. What's the case of loy lishmon lishmon? L'shem shlamim l'shem Pesach. Taimedom l'shem shlamim l'shem Pesach. Hastamov, he didn't say l'shem shlamim Pesach. He just said nothing, and then l'shem Pesach kosher. So what do you see? There you can't see that you go based on the original thought, because the original thought was nothing. Says the Gemara, Shani Osum Da'ama Yochiach Soif Al Chilosoi. No, you could say the opposite too. The same way the beginning determines what the end is, so also the end determines what the beginning is. Inami, Haidetano Lishmon Mishlo Lishmon Taim Shalo Lishmon Lishmon. It could be really that Shalo Lishmon means just not thinking, but the reason we brought that example because we brought the opposite example from before. Elamiho, the following thing. This is an important Mishnah in understanding the concept of what we're doing here with Kosher. L'shem shisha dvorim hazevach nizbach. There's 6 things that you do the carbon for. L'shem zevach. First of all, l'shma. To do the carbon, l'shem. If it's oilo, shlamim, shlamim. L'shem zeveach. L'shem zeveach is for the owner. To have the owner. Yeah, it should be for the owner. L'shem Hashem. Shem Hashem, the way the Bach explains it in Rashi means, you say L'shem, I'm doing it for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's the third one. L'shem Ishim, you need to go in the fire. The Gemara is going to explain later, Lafuki what? L'shem Reach, in order to make a good smell. L'shem Nichoyach, what's Nichoyach? HaKadosh Baruch Hu Omar v'nasa, Reach Nichoyach Shamayti v'nasa Ritzoyin. So I'm doing it for Shem Hashem, and I'm doing it to fulfill what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants us to do. And Chatas V'Oshel L'Shem Chet. And Chatas V'Oshel, we have to have another kavanah also to Rechaber on the Chet. Omar B'Yisi, we'll get back to this in a moment. Even if you didn't have one of these kavanahs, it's still kosher. Shadnai Beisin who? Beisin said you don't have to, this is the original intent is to have the kavanah. But even if you didn't have the kavanah, it's still fine. So Beisin Beaton said, just don't say anything. Better for you to be quiet, because maybe you'll see the wrong thing.
What's the Beis?
Beis means chazal. Chazal said, let's take out the idea of lishma. He's like a stoma pasul. You want to tell me stoma is pasul? Kaime Beis umatin milsa denifsal bay. Beis will come and say, make it pasul. They say, just don't think anything. You see from here, the not thinking anything is kosher. Stoma is kosher. If you had a bad thought, it's possible. This goes back to the Briskirov. The mashmos of the Gemara is that it's not a fact that you're missing l'shvoi, because we're saying if it's stomach kosher. It's only when you have shaloi l'shvoi, it's an active psul. And before we go on, just to mention over here, and this is very important, gedoma to kachim in general. You see by kachim, you need to have l'shem Hashem, and you need to have l'shem re'ach nachas ruach sh'lefanish as amat v'sarit soyin. That's special by kachim. We don't have the other. We don't say by mitzvahs. Because even if you hold mitzvah tzachas kavanah, means you have to have kavanah to be yaitz lulav. I don't have to have kavanah. I'm doing lulav l'shem Hashem, l'shem nachas ruach shamayt v'naseh ritzoyin. Why? What's the chiluk between a mitzvah and kachim? So the first you bring, it's by the name of the Gra. Kachim is in the nucleus of the avodas Hashem. It's like in the Beis Hamikdash, in the Karbonis, is the Ikar Avodah. There you have to make it perfect. Once you come out of Beis Hamikdash, once you're in doing a mitzvah outside, so there, as long as you're doing it the right way, you're good. You don't have to come to be so. When you're doing the kedusha in Beis Hamikdash, Ikar Avodah, you have to have the right machshavas, and to have not only the idea of a kavanah itself, you have to have a kavanah to do l'shem Hashem, to do l'shem Re'achas Ruach, to come and to do Re'ach Nechoyach. You have to do much more. And this is the inyanim of Kachim. Kachim is, we're oisik in Beis Hamikdash. We're the Avodah Beis Hamikdash. We're not anymore. I mean, till now we were talking about things that have to do with the world. Zevachim is doing in the world, even Moed, which is Moyadim, but it's Moyadim in the world. Talk about Noshim, marrying women, and Nizikin, of course, which is the whole actions we have in the world. Now we're going to Beis Hamikdash. That's a whole new Seder, and that's Seder Kachim. Let's go on just to finish the sugya. The Gemara says, "Get is stama possible minhag." How do we know by get that it is possible? By get, if you did stama, it's possible. So the Gemara is going to bring a list of mishnayos that we have in Maseches Gittin, and then to bring the raya. What does it mean? Person is going, and his name is Reuven. He's married to Leah, and he's walking in the street, and he hears. They had the sefer, the writing. Reuven is divorcing Leah. Whoa, that's my name. You know what? Let me use it. Can he use it? Possible. So you see that stoma is possible. You know what we're talking about here? The sefer are just training. They're just training. They're not actually doing it l'shem geushin. They're just doing it for their own training. So it wasn't done l'shem geushin. But if they do l'shem geushin, be stoma is okay. So now I go right. Yeah. The question is, where do we see that stoma is not good? I mean, we learned also by hegdish has to be with the lishma. But if you do stoma, it's good enough. Get by hegdish.
But not by get.
Oh, how do you know that? Maybe stoma lishma too. So what brings out the rayas from the mishnayos? Elam maybe another raya. Without gimel, without on top. Yes, can another additional thing. Kosel gash is ishtri v'nimlach. Person wrote a get for his wife, and he changed his mind to say, "No, I'm not going to divorce my wife." A couple of his friend, Baba, we have the same name. Maybe I use your get. Possibly gash boy. So you see now the megarish stoma. Says more shani also the here it was written for a different woman. It's not stoma. It's for somebody else. I want to see stoma with no kavanah. Elamil. Yes, Ken. Yes, he has two wives. Shesh were same shovers. They both have the same name. So Reuben is married, two wives, both named Leah. It can get a little complicated in that house. But Kosel the guys, the guys was like that. Let me divorce one, the older one. Don't guys, the younger one. So Shani also the integral there maybe again it went for one woman, even though it's the same husband, but it's a different woman. So once it's not called this stomach. Yes, I can love look save the share say gosh possibly gosh boy. He has two wives. Tells the sefer, right, a get. Don't have kavanah for anybody specific. I'll decide who I'll give it to. I'll see who's the lucky one.
What's the name?
They both have the same name. Says Moadil Shani also named Breva. That's a different problem. Because of Breva. There, the sugi goes into Breva. What's Breva? You have two wives. How do I know which one you meant? You say retroactively, you find out. That's a sugi of Breva. Maybe that's the reason it doesn't work. Elameo. One who writes Tevsik means he writes a shtaris to prepare if someone will need a get. So you have to make sure that the husband and wife's name will stay blank because you never know who's going to come. Because the you have to have for every get. The words are you have to leave blank until the husband comes. Why? Because he read it it's stomach. I need to be ashamed that isha. You see, from here, stama is possible. So the Gemara just went through the mishnayos and shows us if I have a get and the get is written without the kavanah for the isha, which is stama, doesn't work. Different than hegdish, where stama works. And so he mentioned that Tosfos says that similar to hegdish, we have bris milah. So also stama works. That's why that it's a difference between is an oimid lezel, no oimid lezel. A baby 8 years old is oimid to have a bris. A hegdish is a carbon. It's oimid to have a carbon. But a get, a woman is not meant to have gerushin, so you have to have an active lishma to make that work.
Is that by get or by other doctor? Let's say you had two or something.
Davke get.
Only get.
Yeah.